Good morning and happy holidays. This is the holiday season. It is upon us. Christmas is next week. Happy Hanukkah. We celebrate Kwanzaa next week. So there's a lot of activity going on. It's a hectic time of year, a lot of planning, a lot of gift buying. I've done all my gift shopping already. Planned ahead. I have it on good information and belief that Mr. Loda and Mr. Cotton have not yet done their gift buying, which means they're going to have a very stressful week. During the holiday season, the traffic in the metropolitan area increases. The number of visitors increases, people coming in to visit family. Number of truck deliveries increases through the holiday season. So it's a high volume time, it's a high traffic time. And given the increase in the volume in the traffic and given the recent events, we believe it's prudent to increase security at the major crossings and the major transportation hubs. We've obviously had several incidents recently. Around the world, you're seeing increased tensions. So we think this is a prudent action. We have an interdepartmental effort that combines the resources and the forces of the MTA, the Port Authority, the New York State Police, and the National Guard. They work in a cooperative effort. They also coordinate with the NYPD. And what you'll be seeing at bridges, tunnels, Penn Station, Grand Central Station, JFK, and LaGuardia are these increased surveillance teams. In a situation like this, they will be doing traffic stops. They will have the benefit of newly acquired, highly sophisticated equipment. We have radiation detection equipment that is going to be deployed. We have canines that are trained to detect chemicals. We'll obviously have a number of police officials and National Guard on site. In a situation like this, where we have put the cashless tolling in place, which are the most of the rivers and most of the crossings on the rivers, bridges and tunnels that the MTA operates. It's been a great asset in now easing traffic. You don't stop at a toll booth. So that's been a great improvement. When these plazas were designed, they were also designed with pull-off areas, so vehicles can be pulled to the side without delaying any traffic. So there will be no traffic delays whatsoever, but there will be vehicle stops. I want to make sure that when the public sees this activity, that they're not alarmed. We don't have any information that has caused us to increase security. This is just out of an abundance of caution. There is nothing wrong. There's nothing to get alarmed about. It's just a proactive effort to increase security. And I also want to thank all the first responders who are out here and doing a great job. This is a dangerous time in our state, in our country. It's a dangerous time in the world. And the first responders are the front line. So to the MTA police, the Port Authority police, the state police, the National Guard, the NYPD, all the forces that are working together. This is dangerous duty, and we thank them very much for their service. You'll now hear from Joseph Loda, who's the chairman of the MTA, and the executive director of the Port Authority, Rick Cotton. Mr. Loda first.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor, and I want to welcome everyone to the RFK Bridge. As the Governor said, we are increasing our presence, law enforcement presence and security presence here at this bridge, as well as all of our other bridges and tunnels throughout the MTA world. You're going to see increased surge of law enforcement on our Metro North as well as Long Island Railroad, as well as in the subway system. This is a coordinated effort between the MTA police, the TBTA police, the Port Authority police, the state police, the National Guard, and in particular in the subway system with the NYPD. As the governor mentioned, we're doing this out of an abundance of caution. This is the right thing to do. Our experience that we've had within, in the last week or two and what we've seen all throughout the world, this is the right time to do this, and we're doing this on behalf of everyone. As you go by, you're seeing cars being pulled over occasionally here. They're being checked for radiological issues. This is what we normally do at the bridges and at the tunnels, and we will continue to do this. And as the governor mentioned, as you're traveling around during this holiday season to family members, you will see this. It's not to be alarmed. It's being done for your safety. But most importantly, I'd like to end with the most important thing that we say at the MTA. We say it every day. We say it multiple times a day. If you see something, say something. And it's a very important thing for all New Yorkers, that if you see anything whatsoever, please call 911 so that we can make sure, investigate, and take care of it. And thank you. Rick Cotton.
Good morning. I'm Rick Cotton, Executive Director of the Port Authority. In light of the terrorist incidents that have occurred in the last several weeks, and in response to the governor, the Port Authority Police Department will have heightened presence at all Port Authority facilities. Our airports are gateways to the metropolitan area, to New York State, to New York City. We want visitors, we want travelers to feel safe. The public will see a substantial increase in uniformed Port Authority police officers, many of them heavily armed. At our bridges and crossings, we will also be deploying significant increased presence of Port Authority police officers and increased vehicle inspections, and we will also be deploying an increase in Port Authority police officers to the PATH system. We want to assure the public we will make every effort, and we will deploy all of our resources to assure that everyone is safe in this holiday season. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Loader or Mr. Cotton? Looks like the New Yorkers are smart people, and these are difficult times, and it's time for some blunt truth and blunt realities. The issues with the New York City transit system are money related. You have 40-year-old subway cars, don't be shocked when they break down. You have signals and electrical components that are 80 years old, don't be shocked when they malfunction. Well, why didn't you change them? Because it takes money to change them. And the MTA has been shortchanged for years. For the legislators to now say, well, it's Chairman Loader's job to get Albany to pass a bill funding the MTA is a joke. It's a joke. It is not the MTA chairman's job to pass a bill. It's the senator's job to pass a bill. It's the assemblyman's job to pass a bill. It's the assemblywoman's job to pass the bill. The only thing the MTA can do on its own is fare increases. But everybody's against the fare increase. Well, then where does the funding come from? And that has been the ongoing discussion year after year after year after year. And some politicians in Albany don't want to do anything. Why? Political rule number one, he who does nothing wrong. So they don't want to increase funding from the state. They don't want to make the city pay its legal obligations. and they don't want a fare increase. Okay, so the MTA gets no money. And they've done this literally for 20 years. And then they say, oh my gosh, the trains are slow. How can you be surprised? You did it. And now we're going to have the same conversation this year. The MTA has to be funded. Great, thank you. That was a great bolt of wisdom that we needed to know. MTA has to be funded. The question is how? And are you in favor of a congestion pricing? No. Are you in favor of having the city pay its legal obligation? No. Are you in favor of a fare increase? No. Well, then how do you fund the MTA? That's literally been the conversation for 20 years. And they don't want to take a position. This year I'm going to say to them this. In the budget, you're going to get a proposal on how to fund the MTA. If they don't pass a law funding the MTA, then they are de facto voting for a fare increase. Because life is options. Everybody says the MTA needs money. All right, do you want to increase fares or do you want to have government pay more? Those are the choices. What they've been able to get away with is saying no to both with no accountability. And then being able to say, oh, the trains are late, we're offended. They have been driving the train, nobody else. And this year, we're going to make sure there's accountability. We need to fund the MTA or the trains will be delayed. The city doesn't want to fund it. The legislature hasn't funded it, and they don't want a fare increase. We have to solve the riddle.
Just a quick follow-up. Assuming you're looking at something like congestion pricing, would that hold on the bridges and put down?
Congestion pricing is a concept that says we need to do two things. Reduce volume and traffic in the metropolitan area, which is true, and we need a long-term funding mechanism for the MTA, which is true. Forget the old plans, they didn't work. We want to come up with a new approach that accomplishes those two goals. But also, Zach, don't let them give you false answers to the question of MTA funding. Well, we should ask Washington for funding for the MTA. Oh, that's good. Well, I'm sure that will be fruitful. Well, I want a millionaire's tax. Yeah, that's dead on arrival. The Assembly Speaker said it's not going to pass, and the Senate leader said it's not going to pass. So you have to, and you guys and gals are part of it, make them give you a real answer. How would you fund the trains? And if you won't fund the train improvement, you're driving the train.
While this discussion is taking place, this morning, just as an example, on the 7 train, people had to wait 5, 6, 7 trains to get on the Chicago and Grand Central. So what do you think sets this rider frustration right now? And what is your message to them while this dispute about funding is taking place?
Look, I want them to call on their legislator. I get it. I feel it. I'm a native New Yorker. I didn't come here from somewhere else. I'm a Queens boy. That's this refined accent, as you can tell. I use the subway system all my life. So I get it. And I am a New Yorker, and I talk to people, and they are frustrated and fed up. Now, look, there are two elements. Leadership and then funding. We have the leadership. Everybody agrees Chairman Joe Loda is the best, and he's proven to be the best. The question is providing the funding to now make the improvements. And that's where we've been going around and around and around, and the legislature has been pointing fingers, and the finger pointing has to stop. Or what I'm going to say is, if the legislature does nothing, they're driving the train. And if they don't come up with a plan to fund it, the only other option is a fare increase. And what was outrageous was when the legislature says, well, the chairman of the MTA, he should come to Albany and get the funding. Unless he came with a Brinks truck and a mask and stole the money from the Treasury, how is he supposed to get it? He does not vote. They vote. They would have to pass it. Do you want to make any comment about it?
We are moving heaven and earth to meet the the positive train control PTC deadline by the end of 2018. We're well on our way there with both Metro North and the Long Island Railroad. You know, PTC is in various different increments. What happened yesterday in Washington State would not happen on either Metro North or the Long Island Railroad because we've put civilian speed control in place. It would have prevented what happened there happening in any one of our facilities. So yes, we are moving as fast as we can to implement PTC.
Yeah, excuse me one second. Just to follow on that quickly, because I know it's cold and windy. The MTA has demonstrated its ability to perform and make improvements when they have the funding. This cashless tolling was done quickly. This was a complicated engineering, physical construction feat. It was done quickly, it was done well, it saves hours of commuter travel, it's better for the environment, and it was done literally in a matter of months, and it's changed people's commutes. It's cut down traffic significantly. So we know how to do the work, we know how to get it done, it's a question of funding. And that brings it back to the legislature. So.
Talk about the last 20 years at the legislature, and you say they a lot. You've been in office for the last 7 of those years. Do you take any responsibility?
I have put, within my control, the state has put unprecedented money into the MTA. In the capital plan, we put in $8 billion. The city only put in 2 and change. And it is a city legal obligation. So I have been more aggressive than any governor in modern history in funding the MTA. However, a governor needs the legislature to vote and pass a bill. And they failed to pass congestion pricing. Why? Because it's controversial. The mayor of the city of New York doesn't want it. It's controversial. Well, then where do you want to get the money from? The city is supposed to pay. Do you want to force the city to pay? Well, we don't want to do that. Well, then what? Then a fare increase. No, we don't want a fare increase. That has been the situation. Well, and the new tactic is to come up with impossible scenarios. Federal government should help, millionaires tax. You know that's an impossibility. Let's just try this. Well, it's inarguable, but that if you stop a vehicle here and that vehicle happens to have been en route to do harm, that you prevented an action from happening, right? If you stop a vehicle and you find out, God forbid, it had an explosive device, the canines are trained to sniff out explosive devices. You just prevented a situation. If you pull over a car and there's a driver who is on a watch list, you prevented a situation. So there's no doubt but that this is preventative before the fact. These are entrances to the metropolitan area, right? So they have to pass through here to get to the dense urban core. To the extent you can stop someone who is intending to doing harm, that's the definition of prevention. Rich? Well, they don't fly past. You know, we're now a little later in the day, so the traffic is moving, but when an officer walks out and points at the truck and says, "You pull over," if the truck continues, then the truck gets pulled over by one of the many police cars. So it's not really an optional pullover. See, they tell you to pull over. You really do have to pull over. Rich? The mind reels with options, but I have no comment. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.